gummy bear.
It's the internet. You're busy. Let's do this for April 17th, 2024. For the next hour or so, let me help you sort through the world of gaming on Game Mess Mornings Live with me, Jeff Grubb. Today, there was an Indie World showcase, and questions linger about what developers will have to do to take advantage of the PS5 Pro. Wait, what's happening?
Is that? I thought that was starting now.
Wait, no, the Indie World was an hour ago, Dan. What are you talking about?
You said hop into the Discord 2 minutes from now. It's starting.
I said 9:45 a.m. Yes, Eastern time.
You're on the East Coast. All right, sorry. See ya.
Oh, cool. All right. But first, please join me in welcoming today's co-host of Game Mess Mornings. It's Mike Minotti. Mike Minotti, how are you doing? This is what I have to deal with.
I know what time things are. I'm good. I was where I was supposed to be before, and I'm where I'm supposed to be now.
You were a good boy. You were there on time. This is what I have to deal with all the time, constantly. We'll get him. We'll get him. We'll wrangle him up next time. Everybody, don't you worry about it.
I was really worried that I was like, what is he doing here? And I was like, does he think Blight Club started now? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, like that's a shoot and a work. There you go, everybody. Yeah, it's kind of thing where I'm like, Susie popped into the call and we're getting ready for Game Mess Mornings. I had a hunch. Like time zones happened to him. I think that's what just happened there. It turned out that's exactly what happened.
He was hanging out for a while until I was finally like, what you doing here, Dan? Like, I'm happy to see you. But I don't think you like Game Mess Mornings.
Mike, how are you doing?
I'm pretty good, actually. It's so funny how much the weather impacts my mood anymore. Like, it was like really nice and sunny yesterday, so I was just in a good mood, and that's kind of continued. I've been sleeping pretty well the last few days. I don't know. Yeah, actually pretty good. Jeff, how about you?
I'm pretty good. I found out some disturbing news about Dan and Jan. They're Prime guys now. Like that's not a shoot. Like, that is a shoot. That is like
that is a shoot. Excuse me. That's not a work. My bad. I tell everybody how not confusing it is all the time, then I fuck it up.
Jan and Jets in all caps says, "Who told you? Your mother. She's worried about you, Jan." All right.
Listen. They're very good. It's very good. Hang on. Let me mute this so I can defend myself. Okay. Are you there?
Yeah, we're here. Go ahead. Defend yourself.
Listen.
That's really rude of him to just kind of pop in here like that, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
No, this was supposed to be under wraps, all right? I told my partner when I came back, because we went grocery shopping. I bought bottles of Prime. She looked at me and she said, "I'm ashamed of you."
I mean, people are worried. That's why this is coming up.
Yeah, I don't think Dan realizes that I moved him. Let's move him back here, see what he has to say for himself.
Frog splash?
he was talking the whole time. Oh no.
You didn't know that I had moved you out of this channel?
Oh, not at all. I was talking at length about the nutritional value of Prime. Nutritionists like it. It's good. It's tasty. It's like drinking candy. That's good for you.
Oh boy.
Like 7 primes a day.
All right. Okay. I threw him out again.
Is it an energy drink or is it hydration drink?
Dan was so hydrated, and he seemed he was rejuvenated after he started drinking Prime. I'll take my answer off the air.
Yeah. Oh, that's what we need is a more hydrated Dan. Cool. Excellent. Okay. I'll try it. I'll try anything. So what the hell?
Won't. It's still an energy drink. It's going to make my heart explode. Absolutely not.
I mean, does it have more or less caffeine than a Coke Zero, chat? If you can answer us that, I will make fun of Mike if it has about the same. And then if it doesn't, then he's right.
It's not an energy drink. It is just a Gatorade.
There's no caffeine. I don't have the energy one.
What is with you? Oh my God! They put a logo of something on the WrestleMania mat, and you two get so activated. But this is why they want to do that.
The greatest wrestler in the world.
Not the greatest one, though. I don't have any caffeine.
Okay, thank you. I'll try it maybe.
It's good. Boy. It's good for you.
Now kick him out for real. Kick
He's
him
got
out
a
for
good
real.
frog splash.
Oh my God. That is the last. That's really funny that when you brought him back in, the words he was saying was frog splash.
Yeah, incredible.
All right. This is a mess of a show already. I'll explain what we do here. Most weekdays, I, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe even some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you're watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mess Mornings or find the RSS on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. All right, we have a lot to get into, so let's start the morning mess with an Indie World Showcase wrap-up. We talked over it. You can watch that on the site. It's the backup should be on YouTube now. But yeah, go ahead and check that out. In the meantime, there is a list of games I have here, and we're not going to go over all of them, although I suppose we can say the names. But like Little Kitty, Big City, Refind Yourself. What we're going to do is talk about the ones that really stood out to us. Mike, do you have a couple that like really sung for you?
Well, I'm really excited to see that Turtles game coming out that everybody really liked on Apple Arcade. It was stuck on mobile. I just don't like playing games on my phone. This is a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles roguelike. What's its full name?
TMNT. Did I write it? Splintered Fate.
Splinter Fate from Super Evil Megacore. So yeah, I've always heard good things about this. It has co-op play. It'll have online co-op play on the Switch.
Super Evil Megacore. I didn't know that. Okay, that's that
Mm-hmm.
team that did that like mobile MOBA game for a very long time. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, so that's pretty exciting. I'm curious to actually try that out myself, even if it's like Hades Light, which is what I'm expecting with a TMNT skin and April O'Neil hanging around. That sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah, I'm sure you would enjoy that. Yeah, that definitely is one that stood out to me. It's coming out in August. There were a couple of like drops today. One was Stitch, the game where it's like kind of like Picross, but with cross stitching. Looked very cute, very cozy. I was kind of down with that. I'm going to check that out. The other one was... Oh, go ahead.
I got bad news about Stitch, though. I'm sorry. I was looking forward to this game.
Okay.
But I see now in Nintendo's press release that they stylized Stitch with a lowercase s.
So it starts with a lowercase s?
Yes.
That's a little upsetting.
Little.
Well, I mean...
Greatly upsetting.
What do you think they're going for with that? Do you think they're trying to be casual?
I think it's too casual. I think it's
Sure.
overthought. I don't like it. Like, we're even starting sentences with it. It's like, well, I guess we can't capitalize it. No, this is say titles are capitalized.
And yeah, if you're trying to take my money, I do want you to be a little buttoned up. I agree. So we'll see. I'll see if I can actually bring myself to spend money on this game today. The other one was Sticky Business, which is like you're running an Etsy store. That's also out today. Both these games look very cute. I think the Etsy one especially is like, hey, make stickers, design stuff. This is stuff my kids do all the time, both in like real life and in like in video games on their tablets. So having a game where you do that and like run your own little store seems like an ideal game for them. So I'll check that out. And then Yars Rising was another one. This is a WayForward and Atari game based on Yars Revenge, apparently a Metroidvania, although the things they showed off gameplay wise didn't look very Metroidvania-y, other than it's like a search action maze level, and then other than that, she's kind of just running around avoiding obstacles. So I don't know. I'm still hopeful, but based on what they showed, I'm not like super excited based on that.
Yeah, like I was like really excited at the concept when the show was starting. Like the game itself, it like the character looks like that like animation from that Ladybug show, right? Like that's the quality level
Miraculous,
there. Yeah, and you know she wasn't like they weren't showing anything particularly exciting in terms of combat or platforming. And we're getting some Metroidvanias now that are incredibly good at those things. It's just WayForward is such a good studio. It's just so weird to me that they kind of make these bland looking games right now when they sometimes make these absolutely gorgeous sprite based 2D games. But then when they just do the 3D models in a 2D plane, it's kind of unappealing looking. I thought the same thing about that Contra game that just came out from them.
Right. And I think with WayForward, we know what they're capable of. They've done a lot of really good-looking games. I mean, they make the Shantae games. Some of the coolest looking
games. Those games are gorgeous. And
gorgeous.
Some of those aren't sprite-based, literally, right? But they're still like 2D art, and they look fantastic. They always look great. So I don't get this.
I don't know. The only reason I can like square that circle, Mike, is if I think like, okay, this is a contracted job. They were given a certain budget. This is what they can do with it. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's exactly kind of how this goes down. That Contra game kind of feels the same way, where I'm like, I think they deeply care about making a good Contra game. I bet that play is great, but in terms of being able to deliver something visually, that's because I was listening to an interview they did the other day about that game, and they're like, Konami wanted it to be 3D art. They asked us to do it that way. So it's like when they're forced into that circumstance, and then they only have such a budget. I think that this is the kind of game you're going to get. If they show more interesting stuff from it, I'm always down for a Metroidvania. But you're right, the competition in that genre this year is very, very tough.
Yes, it is.
How about you? Any other games that stood out?
Well, SteamWorld Heist 2 looks really neat. I actually did not play the first one. I know you really like the SteamWorld games, but the whole kind of nautical pirate theme here looked interesting. When you told me it was a little bit like Worms meets XCOM, that kind of sold me on the idea immediately on that one, and that's coming out August 8th. I think this that's pretty exciting. I know that people like the first Heist a lot. I think the last SteamWorld game, Build, didn't exactly light the world on fire.
Right, it's a decent city builder. It's got a lot of good stuff going on, but I don't feel the need to go back to it or anything.
Yeah, so I think this one, kind of going back to something tried and true, is going to work out for them. Anton Blast is like another one of these sort of Wario Land inspired games with a pretty striking visual style and a lot of fast movement. That looked like a lot of fun as well.
Yeah, I think Anton Blast is one that I've seen a bunch of times, and the Pizza Tower came out, and I'm like, oh, I got one of these now, and so I did kind of forget about it, and then you see it in action, and it's so frenetic, like so fast-paced that I'm like, I kind of have a hard time imagining what it feels like to play, but it's probably pretty similar to Pizza Tower, which I always like describe as like, hey, platformer meets Tony Hawk, where you're like stringing it together these combos to keep your momentum going. And that's got a cool feel. And Pizza Tower, Anton Blast definitely has a similar feel, but it's a little bit less visually aggressive. Like someone in chat was saying that Pizza Tower has the vibe of messing with someone who's like high, and like that's what the whole game is going for, and it absolutely is. And Anton Blast is more like, hey, we're going to do a cohesive like throwback video game style with like a lot more going on than you could do on a Super Nintendo or something like that. So,
oh my God, I slouched for a little bit and chat thought I was asleep. Calm down, everybody.
So what actually happened was I think your video froze with your eyes closed. You were blinking.
I was like, what? I don't think I'm asleep. I'm very wide awake.
Yeah, it looked like that for quite some time. Real quick, going back to SteamWorld Heist 2, though, it's the first one was all in space, and I like that. It's a good game. The XCOM plus Worms gameplay mechanics was pretty cool, but like there's a lot more going on in this new one, where there's a job system, there is vehicular-based like sea combat, that's live action.
There's like an overall story to these SteamWorld things, right? So the last one's in space because you left that planet from SteamWorld like Dig, right? And then
and maybe Build as well, because Build, like the whole idea is like you're building a spaceship to go into space. But yeah, there's a cohesive lore.
Is this like are we in like a new world now, and that's why it's all kind of nautical and a bit more, I don't know, like that?
Likely, yeah. It's still they probably will have some explanation in there, and that stuff is never like in your face. It's always like slightly in the background, so you can ignore it if you want. Especially if you're just like playing one of these games out of the several SteamWorld games that there are. But they do a good job of making all that stuff feel like it's building on top of one another. Lorelei and the Laser Eyes. This one also looked pretty cool. What do you think of this one?
This is the Hotel Dusk looking one.
It is, yes.
Yeah, I mean, it looks nice. It's a little. I don't know. I don't know if it's like entirely pulling me in. It's stylized in a very specific way that isn't exactly my favorite. I don't know how to describe it. That kind of aggressively noir kind of thing, right? But I don't know. How are you feeling about this one?
Yeah, I'm pretty close to what you described there, where I am glad that they're going for a strong style. And for people that are wondering, like we said, Hotel Dusk, that's an old DS game. It's black and white. This is like black and white with maybe a splash of color here and there, I guess. And it's a bunch of vignettes is what it looks like, where you walk into a room and you're going to solve some adventure game style puzzles. And then maybe occasionally you'll also go into a 2D 8-bit retro video game as like a mini game here or there, stuff like that. We probably won't be that every time, but that's an example of one of the kinds of things that can happen in this game. It looks like it's got a strong style, and that could be appealing to some people. I kind of need to know what I'm doing moment to moment, though, and I don't think the style has like completely won me over or anything like that. But the one that did win me over with the style was Europa, something we've seen before. Action adventure 3D platformer sort of thing. Looks like a open world to explore. Has strong Ghibli vibes. You were bringing up Castle in the Sky. I thought I saw a little bit of the Howl's Moving Castle in there for sure. It looks really strong, and I'm like, hey, a game where you have a beautiful world and I can move a character around very quickly. Like the character was like riding the wind. Like that's how fast they can move around. That works for me.
There's like specific modes of platforming, like literally jumping across platforms. I'm like, I always like platforming. Sure, give me that.
Oh, and the Europa demo is out as well, so I'm going to check that out. Okay, very cool. And that's out on Switch right now. I wonder what that runs, or how that runs on Switch. I'll be very curious to see what that's like. And then, just some other games. Valley Peaks, you play as a frog in first person with the tongue that can like sort of grapple onto things. Cat's Quest 3. I know those Cat's Quest games are pretty successful, pretty popular. They're making another one of those.
This looks kind of like, I've not really played these games, but like that game looked pretty nice, actually. Just looking at it, almost gave me a little bit of the vibes of like that remake of Monster Boy 3, right, or something like that.
Oh, sure, yeah, you're right. Like where the animation is very robust, like they have tons of frames and stuff like that. Yeah, I think that's a good anchor for that. I think I've tried Cat's Quest 1 or 2 with the girls at one point, and it didn't like win me over, but I was also like trying to guide them, and that's very distracting when I'm playing these kinds of games, so I'm not sure. But yeah, at least it looks nice. I agree with that. Anything else, Mike? There was that sizzle reel. I didn't write down the games from that sizzle reel. Anything from there?
I think it was kind of a sizzle reel because so many of those games are already out on other platforms, but there's Biz, which is this kind of 2D retro style action platformer, which looked fun. Shim, these games have funny names, which is a 3D platformer. Yeah. And this is the shadow one, right? So
you like are a character that actually lives like deep into the shadows. Like the shadows have depth, and you could swim in them, and you have to jump from shadow to shadow.
Yeah, another Crab's Treasure. We've seen that a lot. This is like the Souls-like game, but you're a crab. Duck Detective, The Secret Salami. You're very excited about that subtitle.
I mean, come on, The Secret Salami. Salami's a fun word. You don't think salami's a fun word?
It's like kind of a fun. What's a more fun word, salami or boomerang?
Oh, I think salami. Boomerang's too try hard. There's too many syllables.
Too try hard. Couldn't even say it.
There's a lot of letters there.
Could you? You didn't even finish that one.
I'm just trying to protect my salami, Mike. See, that's a fun thing to say. Protect in that one movie where Frank Oz says that won't cut the salami. I think about that a lot too. That's a good phrase.
Animal Well is the other one in the montage. Right. This is another kind of 2D Metroidvania looking game that was pretty striking. Would be excited to try that one out as well.
Yep. How'd you feel about the indie world overall?
Well, I'm feeling pretty bad about Salami destroying Boomerang in this poll, which is...
you shouldn't do it, Mike. You should. Come on.
I didn't do it. Not by me this time.
Oh, it wasn't you? Okay. You didn't ask for this.
And then, I think Sean had to destroy my hopes and dreams there. That was actually pretty good, Jeff. I guess we could talk about Silksong. I think I said 20% chance, which is not good betting odds, but hey, maybe it'll be there. It's not shocking that it wasn't. We are expecting to see that thing soon just because of all these ratings and whatnot. But I'm certainly well beyond being like, well, no, Silksong, that whole thing was a wash. That'd be ridiculous.
No, and like we knew the reality going into this. Like we were saying, oh, we're hoping it would be nice. But like you said, no surprise that it wasn't there. The reality is it's getting rated right now. We know there's an Xbox show in the beginning of June, around the time of Summer Game Fest. It'll probably be there. That's the likely, and it could shadow drop even. So it's not like you might. I don't think you're going to be waiting very long to actually play this game.
All right. So let's forget about all the Silksong baggage. I thought that was as strong an indie showcase as I can remember in a while. There's a lot of games there that looked interesting to me. I think SteamWorld Heist 2 is a pretty nice stinger. to have there. Yeah, I'm happy. In a year that's going to be very light for the Switch, right? Like we don't, we have Thousand Year Door coming out soon, and then past that, we really don't know too much. So indie games are going to help that library out a lot through the rest of 2024, and it looks like there is plenty of stuff here that I will want to check out.
Cool. All right, let's move ahead here to PlayStation is officially bringing trophies to PC. This is from Jordan Midler at VGC. Players who sign into their PSN accounts on PC will be able to earn trophies. The list of trophies is the same as the PS5 version of the game, but it's not clear if the list will be treated as separate from the PS5 version, as is the case with games that have both a PS4 and PS5 version. The game will be released on PC on May 16th, and a new PlayStation PC overlay will also debut with the release of Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut. So I guess that's what this is all happening with. It's like Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut is coming to PC, and then they will release this way to earn trophies on PC at the same time. Is two things, Mike. Is this something that would get you more interested in trophies? Yes or no at this point?
No.
Right,
No.
Same. Yeah, that's where I'm at.
We're not trophy freaks. There's some people who are real. Man, I'm shocked how much people talk about platinuming games, right? There's like a lot of people who just by default want to platinum games, and I get it. It's fun to be a completionist and finish all that stuff. I'm just surprised how many people seem to really gobble that kind of playstyle up.
Yep. And then a PlayStation overlay. That's like really what's happening here. Something we've heard about before. But now it's confirmed, and it's coming with Ghost of Tsushima. It will be the first game to use this PlayStation overlay. You'll be able to bring it up by hitting Shift F1, which I think is a podcast. Does this signify to you a deeper hook into PC gaming from PlayStation, where they're like, hey, we're thinking about the future and maybe thinking about a PlayStation store on PC? What do you think this means?
It absolutely is more of a commitment to this to PlayStation on PC, and I think that's a smart move. It makes me think we are going to get closer to a day of, we're not there yet, but where they are thinking about day and date releases for PC and PlayStation. I mean, the one of those that we had, Helldivers 2, worked out very well. And it's great getting your games on PC, but we do see that, sometimes, it's a little hard to get people really excited for a game that came out, 3-4 years ago, just because it's on PC. You'll get a little bit of a bump. But when the game is new and there's already that giant marketing push anyways, and everybody's real excited, if that's the moment you get it in front of as many eyes as possible, that's where you're going to have the greater return. So seeing things like this overlay, I think it's just, it's signaling that's where they're thinking. They are going to keep pushing in this direction.
Yeah, and I think that could manifest as a store for sure. I mean, but in terms of trophies mattering on PC, I think it'll matter to people who are already gathering up trophies on PlayStation consoles because they're lunatics. And if they can play the game again or just boot it up and get another trophy and that says you have another platinum, they'll be happy about that. But I think it really wouldn't matter to a wider audience unless trophies started popping up in all your games that also work on PC. So it's if I buy a game on Steam and could I bring up the PlayStation overlay over on top of that, even though I bought it on Steam and it's not a PlayStation game, but it has trophies on PlayStation. Could I hit Shift F1 or load up the PlayStation overlay and get a trophy that way? If you can't do that, I'm okay, yeah, a couple of games here and there that have trophies, I suppose, fine.
I can't imagine it working that way either. I assume it would be just more of the very specific Sony brought these games over to Steam kind of thing. It's not like you're going to get the PC version of Assassin's Creed, right?
Yes.
Get trophies.
This is work done by Nixxes, which is that studio that PlayStation bought to port games to PC. So they've been working on this. And I think, part of the rumors alongside this always was a PlayStation store would be coming. How do they make the benefits of a PlayStation store stand out so that people actually want to buy their games on there? I suppose if games are cheaper on there, people will use it. I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know, actually. Yeah. That's a good question. How do you encourage double dipping and all this stuff? I mean, I think it's got to still be more about getting the new audience. That's the whole reason you want to do it, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think the idea of the occasional PlayStation sale applying to games on PC through the PlayStation Store, maybe that works a little bit. But I think, your answer there, where you're like, I don't know. I think that's probably the actual answer, because everyone has tried to pull people away from Steam, and it hasn't, for the most part, has not really worked.
No.
And everyone's either returned to Steam in full or like in fits and starts, like Ubisoft. Like some of their games now launch day and date on Steam. Some of their games come to Steam a year later. That's definitely something that's happened with
the fragmentation is weird. It's like, no, there's some BattleNet games on Steam, just some though, and it's it's all kind of confusing. And I'm like shocked that Epic, like I think just today Steam World Heist 2, right? It's like it's on PC and had the Steam logo, and it still had the Epic Game Store logo there, and I was like, we're still even bothering with that, huh?
Yeah. Yes, it's kind of a weird effort, but I get why they feel they need to do something to grow the user base of PlayStation beyond the consoles. We talked about that a lot. They've talked about that a lot, where, hey, the growth is only happening so fast for us, and we want to find new players in new places. I just don't know if a store and an overlay on PC really moves the needle at all for them. So
yeah, I guess the store thing is a little bit harder. I mean, I wonder how well the Xbox store on PC does, and I think it has some traction. And has some traction because Windows and because of PC Game Pass. Although you would think PC Game Pass would do more for that than it seems like it actually does. Even
agreed.
But at least it'd be good for consumers if there is this PlayStation Store and it does do things like give you PlayStation Plus benefits, and we get access to a lot of games for free as part of that subscription and whatnot. But if you're just exactly copying what Xbox does, that'll help you a bit. It's not going to be some giant needle mover.
Yeah, and people want to play these PlayStation games. They do. I suppose, hey, here's one way this could work. If games launch day and date on PC through the PlayStation Store, I think some of those games would sell decently well, even if people can't get them through Steam. It's like, okay, I can get the next Ghost of Tsushima 2. I can pick that up day and date on PC. I just got to go over here. That would probably work to a certain extent, but I don't know how much more they can grow beyond that.
I mean, Epic Games was spending tons of money getting exclusives, right? And I mean, it ultimately, they never really became a Steam competitor, even with all like the ridiculous amounts of money that they were just dumping into that. And they had money to dump because they had all that Fortnite money. And basically, it seemed like, well, we're like the only people in the world who are positioned to try to take on Steam. Why don't we give it a real shot? And if it didn't work with them and the Fortnite money, I just don't think it's going to work for anybody.
Yeah, and I think, Epic and Sony might have different like goals, where it's like Epic's trying to be like a competitor to Steam, and I think Sony's like, maybe we could sell more games to more people, and if we're never going to like compete with Steam, but I still think the end result is going to look pretty similar for both, where some people will show up to these stores to spend some money, but Steam has so much momentum. It's such a black hole, such a gravity well, pulling people away, that that growth that you're looking for is actually going to be very hard to come by, because all the growth is happening over there. All right, let's keep with Sony news. Sony wants 60 frames per second PS5 Pro enhanced games, but it's happy to settle for less. That's according to Tom Warren at The Verge. Sony is working on a new high-end version of the PS5, codenamed Trinity, and likely to debut as the PS5 Pro later this year. The Verge confirmed leaked specs about the PS5 Pro earlier this week, and we've also obtained details on how existing and new PS5 games can be enhanced to take advantage of the PS5 Pro hardware. Sony is also working on an Ultra Boost mode for older games to make them run better on the PS5 Pro. Sources familiar with Sony's plans tell The Verge that Sony is asking developers to create a new PS5 Pro exclusive graphics mode in games that combines Sony's new PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution, PISR, the PISR upscaling to 4K resolution with the 60 frames per second rate and ray tracing effects. Insider Gaming first reported on some of these enhanced PS5 Pro game details last month. While Sony wants this new mode in games, the PS5 Pro Enhanced label will still be available for a variety of other scenarios that include 30 frames per second games. Developers have the option of increasing the target resolution for PS5 Pro games that run at a fixed resolution on PS5, or even increasing the target maximum resolution for games that run at a variable resolution on PS5. Okay. A lot of details in there, a lot of numbers. What I think the reality is that they have the PS5 Pro coming. They want it to feel like a big upgrade. For some things, it will be. For the vast majority of things, it's gonna be like, okay, maybe we can get this game. that was at 30 frames per second with a variable resolution up to 4K, we could probably lock it at 4K at 30. And I think that, so this is just their ambitions meeting reality when it comes to the PS5 Pro, a system that they admit to themselves is like a 45% upgrade in power from the PS5, and it has a pretty similar CPU. So in a lot of situations, they're going to still have a hard time getting games up to 60 frames per second. So it's like, they're kind of having a give and take here. How does all that make you feel about a PS5 Pro at this point?
Yeah, you're just not going to get me very excited about talking about resolution anymore.
Yep.
I think the resolutions on my console games seem good enough to me. The only thing that's really standing out to me in most cases is when we're not getting consistent 60 frames per second, or if it's not even like trying, right? If it's like only hoping for a 30 FPS. And again, that is where my mind is. I care about the frame rate, but the idea that we're getting a mid-gen refresh on a system that is getting a lot of games that are struggling to hit 60 FPS, and the first priority isn't to find a way to make that happen more often, it's a little bit like, what's the point then?
Yeah, it's and I think that's the situation that Sony's going to be in, right? With explaining the PS5 Pro to people who aren't the diehard fans. I think a lot of people are going to say, "What's the point?" And I think Sony will have examples where it's like, this is a PS5 Pro enhanced game that has a PS5 Pro enhanced mode. And this is a developer that put a lot of extra time into taking advantage of these features, and they were able to get, 60 frames per second at what is effectively a 4K resolution thanks to Pizzer, and that'll be nice. But I think what's more likely to happen across most of these games is developers will put in some extra time, but I don't think the PS5 Pro is going to sell so well or be such a feature that people are like, I'm buying the game because it takes advantage of my PS5 Pro. I don't think it'll work that way. I think people will buy PS5 Pro thinking some games will be enhanced, but then when it comes time to pick a game to play, they're going to be like, no, I just want to play the games that look good and look fun, and I'm not worried about whether or not they have that badge on it of PS5 Pro enhanced. I'm sure some people will get mad about it, but there's not going to be enough PS5 Pros out there to justify that. So I think a lot of developers will be like, we are going to do some work, but in most cases, it's probably going to be the bare minimum. Do you expect developers to all jump aboard the PS5 Pro train?
That's a good question. How many are going to? The use case I'm going to be interested in is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, right? Which it's not Sony, but it's this PlayStation exclusive, and there was a deal there. And that's a game that has a performance mode and a fidelity mode, and there's a big difference in both of those, right? Like, you really are sacrificing fidelity for performance, so which one do you want? If that is like a use case where it's like, here's the PS5 Pro version of this, and look, it's just both things finally. Maybe it's not quite as high resolution as pure fidelity mode, but wow, what a great middle ground we have here. If something like that can look appealing, maybe that's a signal for everybody that this is exciting and worth doing, and other third party will jump on board. Because a lot of the first party PlayStation stuff is usually pretty good. Like, Insomniac is very good already at base PS5. They're the ones who do have things like ray tracing performance modes somehow. So they're already kind of magicians over there. So it's like with Spider-Man 2, it's I guess that could look better at PS5 Pro. I'm not sure how much more so.
Yeah, I mean, and we've talked about this a bunch. It's like the ray tracing is already something like, hey, I think the reflections in those Spider-Man games look pretty neat in those big skyscrapers with all the windows. And I do the mode where it's 60 frames per second and it has ray tracing turned on. And that's great that they're able to pull that off. Like you said, they're wizards because they're able to do that 100%. I don't know how much more they're going to be able to squeeze out of that. Like, okay, more reflections. So we'll be able to have more stuff in the world that could be reflected. I just don't know that does a lot to improve the effect at all. And again, does it show up in screenshots? Is this something that could show off in comparison videos in any strong way? I probably not. So I think that Sony will find a way to get people excited about PS5 Pro. But it'll probably come down to clever marketing and hype factors and things like that, and not any one buzzword like it has been for these things in the past. All right, we're going to move on. First, though, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, a lot more headlines, including what's happening over at Take-Two and developers being worried about live service games right after this. All right, we're back. And GTA parent Take-Two is cutting 5% of its workforce. This is from Andy Robinson at VGC. In a statement published on Tuesday, the company said that the cuts would result in the cancellation of unnamed in-development game projects. That's in addition to Take-Two cutting 5% of its workforce. Take-Two estimates the cuts will save it around $160 million annually. The plan is expected to be largely complete by December 31st, 2024. The announcement comes weeks after it was confirmed that Take-Two is acquiring Borderlands maker Gearbox in a deal worth $460 million. Take-Two CEO Strauss Zelnick had indicated that it intended to reduce costs earlier this year, but claimed at the time there were no current plans for layoffs. This is the guy that at the time was like, it's all about marketing. Marketing is our biggest expense, so we're going to cut on that, and so we don't have to lay anybody off. And yet here we are. 5% is a pretty big number for Take-Two. That's a pretty big company. Trying to see if they have estimates for how many people that would be. I think the exact numbers aren't out there. And they say stuff like 5% to make it seem smaller. But
Right.
Yet another company doing it, and it's always between 5 to 8%, right? Hey, we're cutting 5%, 5 to 8% of our workforce because they're all like, hey, everyone else is doing it. We can get away with it. It's not going to look like we are the standout. Oh, we needed to do this. We're just part of the trend. And so we can actually benefit right now if we do this, and our stock price will go up. And it did 1%. So, hey, congratulations, everybody. You created more shareholder value. Woo. What do we say at this point, Mike, about this?
Yeah, I mean, it sucks. It continues to make me feel bad about the immediate future of gaming, where we have these giant companies who are producing less and less. And here we are cutting workers and just straight up canceling projects. Again, like we get so few games from a Take-Two every year now. Now we're just straight up canceling the few projects that we actually do have. Gosh, GTA 6 better deliver for them. Of course, it probably will, but video games are very complicated and very difficult. And there have been plenty of times where high-profile projects have released and at least initially disappointed. But yeah, I mean, everybody's been doing this. It seemed like there was a little bit of a lull there for a little bit. So I guess I was hopeful that maybe we're finally done for a little bit here. But no, here's Take-Two coming in to get the train rolling again.
Yeah, and it feels like that exactly like that, where it's like, okay, is this going to start waning off, and people will be like, okay, now it would feel weird to do it, but as soon as a big company like Take-Two spins it up again, it's like that could encourage other companies to be like, you know what, we were thinking about doing more cuts anyhow, let's do more cuts. So I hope we get on the other side of this very soon. But these companies continue to be in a situation where they're like, we are only focused on making shareholders feel more comfortable about being invested in us, and everything else be damned, including all the people that made all the video games that we sold in the first place. You're right. They have a lot riding on Grand Theft Auto 6, and I believe you when you say like Grand Theft Auto 6 probably will deliver. The thing, though, that it seems like such a roll of the dice at this point, though, is GTA Online. Like, how do you replace that? What does that look like? I mean, they tried just making GTA Online with cowboys, Red Dead Redemption 2. It didn't really take. It was not nearly what GTA Online was. So, no. Yep. And we're going to go through probably these layoffs. We'll get on the other side. And in a couple years, we'll look back and be like, man, all those layoffs were really devastating to this industry. I wonder if there was any accountability for the industry being in such a bad place in the first place, and it will be all the same CEOs still in charge of these companies, and there'll be very little change up there. There won't be any accountability, and that's like maybe the most frustrating part about all of this is that
it's because we're not tipping enough after we beat our games now, right?
Yeah, you got to tip after your games. That's how we're actually going to pay for all this development time. All right, 70% of developers are worried about the live service model's sustainability, according to surveys. This is from Chris Scully at VGC. Yeah, count me into that 70%. As part of a new survey carried out by Game Developer, and that's capital G, capital D Game Developer, 600 developers were interviewed between February and March and asked a number of questions about business models and monetization in video games. Participants were asked how concerned they were about the sustainability of live service business models commonly being used today. Of those asked, 39% said they were somewhat concerned, while a further 31% said they were very concerned. A quarter said that they weren't concerned, while the remaining 4% didn't know. live service games are generally defined as those which continue to provide regular content after a game has been released. Yeah, okay. So I think developers are probably looking around, and but if you ask, hey, how do you feel about the sustainability of premium price games? Like, not everyone's going to be thrilled about that either. Like, there's concerns across every business model right now. But this shows very little faith in what is very likely what a lot of these developers are working on right now. And who would know better than them about like how sustainable and even viable this business model is in the first place? This thing has come to a head, right?
Right. I mean, there's the inherent problem that the whole point of live service is that, well, we're going to make people play our game longer, maybe forever. Well, okay, great. How many games can one person play forever, right? So it's like so many of the hits are these games that have now been around for a very long time, like Fortnite or a Roblox or, you know, PUBG or even World of Warcraft. And it's the rare thing is when a new one of these does pop off, like a Helldivers 2. That's when it's kind of surprising. But for every Helldivers 2, there are so many more of these games just trying to do it. Even when they kind of come out, and it seems like there's a good initial launch, like for a Multiverses or a Knockout City or something like that, they eventually fade away anyways. So yeah, like how many more of these can we really support in this industry?
Yeah, and it's like, you know, time is finite for every kind of game, but there is something maybe a little bit insane about like, okay, well, we're making another game that has to take up everybody's time. And, you know, and those games that do take up so much of our time and become hobbies also make it less likely for a game that is a product to succeed. Like those games also have to compete in that same marketplace for those same dollars and that same attention. But there's something about like, hey, maybe you could fit in on a weekend or something like that and convince someone to pay $60 to $70 but hey, I'll play this game for a week and a half and then I'll get back to that game with my friends. So I don't know, it feels like that is maybe like starting to feel a lot more viable than another live service game in a place where the hobby games have sort of been solidified at this point, and you're not going to really be able to create another one unless it just pops off out of nowhere, like sometimes does happen with Steam Early Access or something like that.
Chat just said, does anyone remember the finals? Yeah, what's going on with the finals?
The finals just got, I know about the finals because I think, what was I using that keeps reminding? I think it was Discord. It was like, hey, go play the finals. We'll give you some bonuses or something. That's the only time I've heard anyone talk about the finals recently. I don't know. Yeah, and that was a game that everyone's generally liked, right?
Yeah, I liked the finals, but it's like, I guess I want to play that. I mean, people are still like, Counter-Strike 2 is out. It's like, yeah, sure, it's quote unquote new, but people still just ultimately playing Counter-Strike when they're doing that.
Yeah, I mean, Valorant takes up a lot of time. All these other, like, some of these games are just. I mean, the Helldivers 2 is like people are playing out. That happened. That when a new game, one of these pops off, and everyone is jumping aboard that, it takes all the oxygen out of the room for something like the finals. It was like, okay, well, that was last year. And like, are you really going to spend time be like, hey, come play the finals with me when everyone is already like, we're playing Helldivers 2? You're just going to be like, okay, well, I'm going to go with my friends playing Helldivers 2. It's such a tough thing, a tough force to battle against.
And I mean, just if I was making a game, I feel more comfortable trying to convince people to, like, I don't know, spend whatever on my game that's going to take them a week or a month to play than try to get them built into my entire ecosystem, right? I don't want to make an ecosystem. There's only so many ecosystems out there one person can endure.
Yep. And we get why these companies, the big companies, keep coming back to that, because it's like, if you can get people in your ecosystem, there is the line goes way up. Like, you know, I was talking about, like, EA had this 15% return on investment that was like their goal for most of their games. But that didn't apply to the ones that were going to be live service games. The live service games were supposed to make infinite money. The line was just, you couldn't see the end of it. It was just going to keep going up and to the right. And if you start imagining things that way, and it's just printing money, I could see why it's enticing, and why these companies sort of get addicted to the notion. But we can see that it's, for most of the time, it is a fool's errand. You are chasing something that you're never going to actually be able to grab. All right, last couple of stories here. Star Wars Outlaws is a pricey extra Jabba the Hutt mission, is optional and additional, Ubisoft says. This is from Tom Phillips at Eurogamer. Ubisoft has responded to the outcry over Star Wars Outlaws' Jabba the Hutt mission, which will be available at the game's launch only to owners of the game's pricey Gold or Ultimate editions. These editions are $110 and $130 respectively, include the Star Wars Outlaws Season Pass, which the Jabba's Gambit mission is described to be a component of. Yesterday, Eurogamer reported on how there was confusion over whether the mission would be the only method of encountering the greedy space slug Jabba the Hutt, who has popped up repeatedly in marketing for the game. It was also unclear whether the mission would be available for all Star Wars Outlaws owners down the line. Now Ubisoft has responded. To clarify, Jabba the Hutt and the Hutt Cartel are one of the main syndicates in Star Wars Outlaws and will be part of the experience for everyone who purchases the game, regardless of edition, a Ubisoft spokesperson said in a statement to Eurogamer. The Jabba's Gambit mission is an optional additional mission with the Hutt Cartel along with Kay and Nyx's journey across the Outer Rim. This is kind of the thing where I'm like getting a little bit frustrated with the backlash towards this game, Mike. People are hearing something and then assuming the worst version of it, and then that becomes the narrative and that everyone runs with. Now, these companies have often done the worst version of these things in the past, so as always, I understand where that impulse comes from. But it's like reading this kind of from the beginning, I'm like, I don't think that's going to be how it works. Everyone's assuming Jabba the Hutt's going to be locked behind this thing. I don't think that's going to be how it works, but having everyone kind of freak out after several other freakouts related to this game, I was getting pretty tired of it. Where are you at with this game and the reaction to it, and what do you think is happening here?
Yeah, look, I think maybe Ubisoft didn't word that very well originally. Of course, people are going to freak out, but also people freaked out from the very beginning. It's like, hey, that maybe this doesn't mean the only Jabba the Hutt mission, whatever. And like if the story became like you have to pay $140, whatever it was, to unlock the Jabba the Hutt mission. It's like, okay, like, hey, look, it is like a whole collection of things that you get in like the special edition of the game. I agree. Who would pay for that? That's stupid. But it's not like you open a menu and it's like, give me $140 for this one mission. It's scummy, not quite that scummy. And again, it's just like an extra Jabba the Hutt mission. Yeah, I think hiding missions behind DLC is pretty stupid. I just can't get that worked up about it. And people got really worked up about it. And like you, I'm glad to a degree because, hey, it keeps these publishers a bit honest, that they have to tiptoe, that they have to be careful. And hey, they do cross that line so often that I guess they need to kind of worry about getting the pitchforks out from the mob a bit. But it can't be me. It can't be me getting that upset about some extra expensive Jabba the Hutt mission.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a time when if you would have told me that, hey, they spent all this time making this game and it's completed, and then they took something out of that completion, set it aside so they could charge extra for you. I definitely remember a time where I was like, oh, you can't do that. Put it, especially, and this was a time when it's like, it would be on the disc, and then you'd have to pay money to unlock the thing that's on the disc. Well, this game doesn't have that on the disc. You have to download stuff anyhow. If you buy this game, even if it is on a disc, you're going to have to download stuff to get the game working. So it was like a mental thing for me at that time, for sure. At this point, I'm like, I pay extra for guac when I go to Chipotle. I'll pay extra for the thing that they have sitting ready for this game as well. Or I won't. Or I just won't, which is actually going to be the case here, is I would never pay extra to play some, what is almost certainly a pointless Jabba mission that won't affect the outcome of this game in any real way or the quality of this game one way or the other.
Like, do we really think we're going to live in some reality where like people are going to be like, guys, that Jabba the Hutt mission you have to pay for is actually the best content in the game? That's probably like Jabba that's going to tell you to go to some bullshit place and like hunt somebody. And maybe because it's like more money, it's going to be like some recognizable character from Star Wars, whoop-de-doo. It'll be the girl from Solo will be there too.
She actually already is in the game, so
I know she is in the game. Yeah, she'll be in this mission.
They're working together, Jabba and Kira. Finally, it's the crossover.
Dr. Evazon from the Katina will be there. I would pay actually for a Dr. Evazon mission. You want to get me excited? There you go. Or Lobot. You want to give me something interesting? Give me a Lobot DLC. I'll give you $140 for Lobot.
You ever think about how Lobot is just short for lobotomy? And this is a man who is a robot with a lobotomy.
Yeah, there's a lot of horrific things implied there, and he's just kind of Lando's like lieutenant or
Servant?
worst case servant. Yeah. Like,
Well, worst case slave. Like, yeah.
I guess that would be the worst case. Yeah. So what is a Lobot? I'm very concerned about his situation. I hope he's comfortable.
Yeah, I hope this was a choice, like consented to this. Otherwise, oh boy. Yeah, I just said I'm at a point where these games are so expensive to make, and we're barely getting them in the first place. If one of the ways that they can justify making it is, hey, we will take some content that is finished, put it aside for a more expensive version for the most like freakiest of freaks who we know will spend extra on it. Like if you feel taken advantage of there. Yeah, 100% that's what's happening. That's happening all the time, everywhere in capitalism. That's what capitalism means. They're exploiting you. Like that's how it works. They're capitalizing on your impulses so that you do want to spend more money.
Get 5 friends to join DraftKings, and we'll give you $100 extra in your account. Like
every commercial is manipulating your insecurities so that you'll buy stuff like, oh, but hey, your hair has a little bit of gray in it. You should do something about that, you ugly freak. Like, yeah, you're definitely being manipulated. So if you want to complain about that, I get it. I'm just at a point where I feel like this game gets greenlighted because they at the beginning they're like, hey, and we will put a little bit extra in there. And I want this game, so I'm maybe being a little bit more lenient on it. And if people want to yell at it, as always, keep yelling about it.
Remember the Emmett Smith Just for Men commercial? For some reason, me and my friends would just say that, like, verbatim to each other. Like, Emmett, your gray hairs put you in a rocking chair. Your beard is weird. Your stash is trash. And he's, like, laying there and, like, our time is like, oh, it's bad.
I do remember this commercial, and it was
just say, we would say your beard is weird.
Your beard is weird.
Like, your stash is trash. Oh, it's bad. I hope you got a good paycheck on that one.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sure he did. Go get your money, Emmett. All right.
There's a lot of hate for this Outlaws game that I think looks pretty good, and
yes.
I get it. Well, I get some of it. So some of it is like the
the weird reactionaries.
Some of it's like this character doesn't have enough cleavage, which I don't know what to do with that. But I get it. People are suspicious of Ubisoft. I don't know. Every time I actually see this game, I think it looks good. I think it looks like it could be fun.
And if people don't, like, yeah, I get that too. Don't buy it. I mean, I always like feel like I say, hey, don't buy it and shut up. I'm not saying that part, but probably just don't buy it and you'll be fine.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's like again, it's like I'm not trying to like defend Ubisoft. Of course not. I think that Ubisoft has put out some good stuff recently. Like I like The Lost Crown a lot. I liked that Avatar game. So yeah. I don't know. It's not like something's immediately a lost cause just because it's Ubisoft. It's not that bad over there right now.
Right. And I did think it was like a little weird how like the story about this game's not going to have towers for you to climb. And it's like, oh my God, Ubisoft is abandoning their stuff. And it's like, yeah, they've had a lot of games in the last 10 years where you haven't climbed towers. Like still, yeah, sure. They still have a few that you do. But there's been plenty of games where that's not been the key thing about the gameplay. So why is this such a big deal? But I think people put Ubisoft off to the side in a lot of ways, and they're an afterthought, and all that people really do remember are the things that frustrated them. And I think a lot of that stuff is rising to the surface because this game actually does look interesting. So, yeah.
Remember that time I stood up first to leave that Ubisoft thing at Summer Game Fest?
Yes, that's the one thing I remember about that Ubisoft press conference.
Yeah, that's my connection to Ubisoft. So there.
Mike Minotti disappointed with Ubisoft. You just looked disappointed with them. You were
like that. I was just done. They were like taking like a bow, like they just put on a play. I was like, no, I've got work to do. I'm leaving.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like worse than applauding for the eclipse. Like, applauding for the eclipse is fine, actually. People applaud when they're just excited. It's not always about like trying to congratulate or show appreciation to sentient beings. It's okay to applaud when you're happy. It's fine. I don't need to applaud though for a bunch of people like doing a live commercial. That's fine.
Were the Just Dance dancers at that one? They always are, right?
They always are. So I want to say yes. I guess. Look, I applauded for them when their segment was done. I suppose. Okay.
Right.
Don't get to go back up for the curtain call next to Yeez Gamo.
All right. Let's see. Actually, that we're going to wrap it up with that one. I got a poll question I'm going to get set up. While I'm doing that, Mike Minotti, why don't you tell people where they could find you on the internet and all of that good stuff?
I am managing editor over at Gamesbeat.com. I have a story going up in about an hour about a little something I got to play early. Can't say what yet, but I'll tweet that out if you're following me on Twitter at ToCoTo. So look out for that. Last in the 10 Dogs, Game Mess Decides, are the podcast I do with Jeff over on our Game Mess channel, and I do 90s Disney, my Disney podcast with my brothers. We're recording a new episode today. Should go up tomorrow, where we're going to rank just about every Universal Orlando attraction from worst to best.
All right. The poll question is, are you planning to play a Fallout game soon? And 63% said yes.
That's high.
That's really high. 38% said no. That's impressive. I mean, clearly we've talked about this, the synergy between a show and getting people excited to play games before. That's half the reason that these things are happening so much more frequently these days. I didn't expect it to be this effective. This is pretty wild.
I mean, people like Fallout. Fallout is
you know what? I didn't refresh it. Let me refresh it. Here, let me see. Let's see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's more likely. This looks more okay. 46% said yes.
Oh my
after we had 3.6 thousand votes, as opposed to the 24 that we had before.
Wow,
big
you
difference
really
there.
manipulate this data if you wanted to.
It turns out. So 46% said yes. That's still pretty high, but not quite like we thought.
No, that's more reasonable. That's the fact that like almost half the people want to dip back into Fallout. That's impressive. Okay, yeah. Makes
a lot more sense. All right, I'm gonna do a new poll question. Do you or would you use a PlayStation Store on PC? Yes or no? We'll get that up and running.
Would it have Ridge Racer?
Mike, probably not.
Well, then who gives a shit?
Nah, sorry, buddy. We'll get that poll up and running on youtube.com youtube.com /@giantbomb. Under the community tab there, you can answer that. And then we'll have the results on Game Mess Mornings on Giant Bomb tomorrow. Speaking of Giant Bomb, later today, we are getting back into Blight Club. Super Dan 64 will finally return. Mike, are you excited about it?
Very excited. Like, I can't remember. I think we did the Jimmy Olsen bullshit last time, and then we flew through some rings. So who knows what's going to happen next?
Yeah, it could be anything. I bet.
I have an important question for you, though, before we end the show. Jabba or Jabba?
Let me just, okay. Jabba the Hutt. That's how
you say Jabba. You say Jabba.
I think I say Jabba the Hutt. Jabba. It's probably Jabba.
I always thought it was more Jabba. I think, but there's a lot of names being said multiple ways in Star Wars, right?
Sure. Oh yeah, like the characters themselves say
and Han.
Yes.
Right? Nobody knows. Leia or Leia.
Jabba the Hutt. Jabba. Yeah, I think when I just naturally say Jabba, if I were to think about it, I probably would agree that it's Jabba.
It's because all your Japanese Duolingo is that influencing how you're pronouncing.
It's breaking me.
Words?
Yes, 100%. Yes.
Okay, we gotta chat. Jabba or Jabba? Jabba. Jabba is winning. So you're a freak. You're a loser.
Yeah, I know. Listen, I remember. I think I've told this story before, but when I was on Exploding Barrel podcast, one time I said Sonny instead of Sony a bunch of times, and you guys were like not having it. You would not have.
No, absolutely not.
And that's when I was like, I'm gonna Sony. It's to this day. Every time I say Sony, I think about that moment. So,
man, I have no memory of this. I'm glad that I was able.
It was forever ago.
I'm glad I was able to infect you and shame you. Sony.
Okay. Yeah, no one says Han, really. Everyone does say Han.
Everyone says Han. For some reason, Lando's like, Han. Like, why are you calling him that?
He's got an accent.
Wasn't there a callback to that in Solo, the movie?
Yes, definitely there was. Yes, they definitely did that. What else is happening on the site?
I like Solo. I'm sorry.
It's a good movie. It's a bad Star Wars.
Whatever.
Yeah, it's fine. You're allowed to like it. This is my feeling.
You're playing Fallout New Vegas, aren't you?
Fallout New Vegas tomorrow. There will be a voicemail dump truck. Jeff's is probably happening soon. Chef Reacts is going to be on voicemail dump truck with Mike Minotti and Dan Reichard. So send in your food related questions. So they can, really shame themselves before.
One of my brothers told me that Chef Reacts talked about some Disney food once. It was not kind. So.
Oh, Chef Reacts is the reason. So I got my wife a Ninja Creamy for Christmas, which is a fun thing to say. And it's apparently an ice cream maker. It's called a Ninja Creamy. And I saw Chef Reacts say you could make Dole Whip with this. I've never had it. So ask him for a recipe about how I do that, because I have a Ninja Creamy in my house.
Oh, there's a million Dole Whip recipes on the internet. Don't worry. You can just buy the mix, I think,
Got the
directly.
man himself. All right. Anything else? Yes, UPF will happen. We're probably going to go back into content warning. Maybe try to get a multiplayer mod so we can get everybody in there. And then this week, instead of BCR, we're going to start this thing where maybe sometimes we do a Power Bombcast instead. Power Bombcast will happen. Tune in for that. All right. We're going to get out of here. Mike, thank you so much for spending today talking with me about video games. I really appreciate it.
Ninja Creamy, huh?
I think it's called a Ninja Creamy. I don't think I'm making that up. Ninja Creamy.
No, is it Ninja Creamery at least?
No,
Which isn't much better.
And it's creamy with an I. So
yeah. Is it lowercase? Is it lowercase c?
Well, it's not like I creamy. Yeah, it's capital N Ninja.
I creamy.
All right, we're getting out of here. You're the best audience in gaming. Until next time, have a good one. Take care of yourself, and I creamy.